Recording, great. Okay, so everyone, I'm Lawrence Mack from Real Estate Rookies and Real Estate Broker out of Mississauga. I'm also here joined with Rick Surgison, who is a broker manager at EXP as well. And he's been doing this for 40 years now, something like that. 43?
Yep.
Okay, so he's been in the industry for 43 years, been, I don't know, when Keller Williams, been through like multiple Remaxes, been all over the place. So he's been around the block.
More than once.
So quickly, I want to go through. I mean, obviously, if you're doing goal setting, this whole process should take hours, I guess, and just in your own room and just sort of think about what you want to do. So we're just going to provide a high level plan of what to do and then discuss like smaller details. But obviously, you can go deep into each of these. So we're going to start with setting goals, and then we're going to figure out the numbers it'll take to get there. And then we'll just talk about different ideas about the different things we can do to either get more leads or to nurture your leads or nurture your clients. And lastly, plan out a schedule. That's the plan.
Strange. This is a business planning. And here we are talking about personal growth. The challenge that you will have, and people say, oh, I want to increase my business by 25% next year. The challenge is that your business will only grow at the rate and to the level that you do. To grow your business means growing yourself. We all get to what's called a Peter Principle, which is a book from many, many years ago. I'm probably dating myself. But people grow and succeed to a certain level, and then they seem to take one step higher and they start to fail. And a large part of that is because they don't keep growing. It's one of those, and right out of Jim Collins' Good to Great, good is the enemy of great. So when you get good at something, you stop. And then you wonder why you start running into problems. Your business can only grow at the rate and to the level that you do. So one of the first things I encourage and have for years is to make a plan first as to what are you going to do to grow and develop yourself? And it's amazing how the business follows. And yet, if you try and force the business and you haven't grown yourself, you'll keep making the same mistakes and your business won't grow at a proper rate. So part of this is looking forward over the next year and saying, what am I going to do to better myself so that I am open and can deal with more business? So I encourage people. I mean, right now I am reading, I don't know if you can see on screen, I'm reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. That's in one of my reading rooms. I'm reading The Everyday Hero Manifesto by Robin Sharma, who is the same guy that wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and his series is really good. And I'm also reading Atomic Habits, which is out in my car. You say, well, why would it be in my car? Because I'll go someplace and have to wait for somebody. Well, rather than just sit there, I'll pick up my book, read a few more pages. So I'm constantly inputting other people's great ideas into my head. So that's one way to do it. Who do you want to meet in the upcoming year? That may sound kind of strange, but there are often people that you interact with, particularly online and through the pandemic, that getting together with them and picking their brains might not be a bad idea. Maybe that's worth the cost of lunch. So one of the things, the next point is, what conferences or seminars are you going to commit to attending? I love going to conferences and seminars, but when I go, say I'm going for a week-long conference, I go with the full intent to meet certain people. I'll look at who I've talked with and shared ideas with over the past year. And then I might say, hey, are you going to, we have two conferences at EXP, Shareholder Summit, which will be in June, and EXPCon that'll be in November. So if I know I'm going to those, why don't I reach out to somebody who I'm talking with and saying, hey, are you going to Shareholder Summit in June? Yeah, I am. Great. Can we get together for lunch one day and get a chance to meet face to face with them and pick their brains on what they're doing that you want to be doing? And it's amazing how some of those relationships develop and carry on over the years. So I'm always, whenever I'm going away on a conference or something, and it was funny because when I had my own Keller Williams franchise as the broker of record operating principal, um, and we'd be going off to what family reunions, what Keller Williams calls their big thing. And we'd be going out to family reunion, and I would have a meeting ahead of time, a couple of weeks ahead, say, all those that are getting to family reunion, here is how to best get, positive things out of it. But please do not go looking for me and expect to have lunch with me every day, because even if I don't have a lunch date, I am going to go find another table with a bunch of people that I've never met, and I'm going to sit down with them and get to know them. So I encourage them not to travel by packs, but to literally set up appointments. So if you've never met Lawrence, make an appointment with Lawrence to go and meet him for lunch one day when everything's safe, and get to know each other on a more personal basis. Go with good questions. There's a great book, Good Leaders Have Great Questions by John Maxwell, or QBQ, which is the question before the question. Those are great books on learning how to ask great questions. So that's maybe a couple books you want to add to your reading list. And before you even get into a business plan, just going down the sheet here, you have to plan your personal time. That means your personal time in a week, and that means your vacation time. This industry is so prone to burnout, and you just get to a point where you just can't deal with it anymore. Sometimes you have to commit to having your family time and your personal time, and those are two separate things. You need personal time for you. Okay, that's the thing that I've had lots and lots of personal time over the last 2 years. My personal time is most enjoyed spending it with a group of people that sing together. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. And I feel that part of me missing. So as much as I have tons of time to sit and watch football, and I'm learning at 63 years old to finally play the guitar, I miss my real personal time. Yep.
In general, on page 2 here, these are the goals that we probably want to fill out. So if everyone can print out this page, or the general idea here is, so Rick is going to go through some of the different ideas to jog ideas about what you want to do for the next year. So this would just be ideas about either professional development, personal development, health, whatever it is. So I would recommend that you just print out the sheet and just start writing down ideas as Rick is talking. And so basically he's just going to quickly go through these, which are, affirmations and that kind of stuff.
So there's a whole bunch of things that if you haven't tried it. It's not for everybody. Some people love affirmations. There's a great video of a little girl that, if you've seen it a couple of years back, and she's up on the bathroom sink doing, "I'm great, I'm wonderful," and it's hilarious. But hey, she obviously is buying into it. Some people prefer journaling. I keep a notebook with me at all times, and I just continue thoughts. I put down, I've even got guitar chord patterns because that's what I'm learning right now. So I tend to do that. Some people like visioning. They'll do vision boards. They'll look at the things they want to attain. And we can do segments on all of these things. Each of those is frankly a different hour to 2 hour course. But it's just to look at things, just go in and start checking things out. Great book that is What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, I believe. I'd have to go and look in my library and find it. It's an interesting book because it takes the 20 or 21 things that stop people from success. And in the book, and if you read this book, you're going to see 3 or 4 things right away that you know, yeah, that's me. And he points out that it's awfully hard sometimes to change things, but sometimes it's easy to stop doing something. So first stop the habit and then build a new one. Okay. Last thing, how do you hold yourself accountable? All these plans that we're going to make today are awesome. And you put it on the shelf, and 3 months later you're not succeeding, and you go back to it and go, well, I didn't get where I wanted to be. And that's because it's great to dream it. But as I say at the bottom of the page from Thomas Edison, vision without execution is merely hallucination. It's really not a vision at all.
All right, so let's go on to the goal. So if you guys to print this out or just write down. So the main thing here is we're just going to quickly brainstorm some ideas for the things that you want to do. You don't have to say it out loud, just write down. The main one would be the first one, which typically you want some type of financial goal, right? Or number of transactions.
Number of transactions doesn't give you.
It doesn't really give you here, but I mean, so depending on the person, but that's right now. I mean, we're going to basically be covering number one, which would be the financial goals, but the other ones, whether it's personal, health, that kind of stuff, that type of development, you may want to think about as well. But really just think about a number here, and then that'll be for the next section. So if you want to spend, I guess, 5 minutes, we'll just stop the recording, or I'll just cut it out. But basically the idea here, just think about what it is that you want to do over the next year, and then that's it. I'm just going to quickly write down.
Here's how to start that, though. You have to figure out what you need to make a plan. To make a plan that you're going to gross 100,000. I'm just using numbers. Your numbers will be your numbers. Say, I'm going to make $100,000 this year. Okay, that looks great. Except that you have to take tax off of that. So, okay, well, gee, if I make 100 and I've got, say, 30 or 35,000 in taxes, that leaves me with 65. Okay, but what if your budget, talking your home budget and your business budget, is $8,000 a month? That's a bit of a problem. Even 7 would be a problem. Frankly, even 6 would be a problem. So the first thing you need to do when you get some time, maybe while you're watching the bowl game or whatever, is to sit down and honestly look at everything you spend every month and total it up. What's your mortgage or your rent? What's your car payment? What's your average gas bills? What's your insurance? What's your home insurance? What's your life insurance? What's your health insurance? What are your utility costs? What does your phone cost you every month? What do you got in the way of internet? You have to add all of that up on both sides, your business and your personal, because if your goal doesn't exceed that, you are planning on bankruptcy. You're planning to fail if that number does not exceed all your expenses. Now, there's 2 ways you can deal with that. One is to reduce your expenses. Got to be careful on that, though. There's a certain amount of expenses you need to live. There's a certain amount of expenses that we get into that you're going to need to run your business. So we need to look at that. So a little bit of homework. Sit and add up every single expense that you have and that you need. I don't want to make this all about me, but of course, being me, that's when the pandemic came. Both my wife and myself had car leases totaling $1,300 a month. Now, business usage is what's tax deductible. But the pandemic came, and I'm also with EXP, so I work remotely on my laptop at home. at my kitchen table or at this table down in the basement or at my desk. My car wasn't being driven. So I wasn't getting tax deductible mileage. Yet I was paying $1,300 a month for my wife's car and my car. And yet the write-off would be 10% max. So we took cash and bought out the leases because we didn't need the cash flow of $1,300 a month because it was no longer tax deductible. So things like that you can look at, and we'll get into that when we get planning. But look at what your total life budget is, multiply it by 12, and your goal has to exceed that. And if it doesn't, we need to talk.
Okay, so just everyone, just I guess think about your goal. We'll spend another minute on that and just get an idea about a number. But then again, as Rick was saying, look more specifically with the number depending on your expenses. But you can have a number in mind.
And you may, if you've done your taxes and you've been in the business for a number of years, you may already have those numbers. You just have to pull them together. If you're new to the business, at least you know what your personal budget should be. But for today, ballpark it. If you kind of quickly jot down and go, okay, my mortgage is this, my taxes are this, my blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's 5,300 rounded up to 6,000. For today's purposes, you can adjust everything later.
Great. So the next, after that, now that you have a number in mind, we're going to go on to the next one, which is how do you get there? So we're going to go through an Excel sheet, which is also in the shared drive. That'll give you a better idea. So give me a second while I load it.
Oh, just explain what the last pages are here. Just
okay.
Zoom down a little bit.
Yeah, so very quickly, this is what we'll be talking about in the second half, where we're talking about the different ideas about how to, the actual items that we'll be doing. So again, we'll just be brainstorming ideas. You know, obviously we can't force you to do anything. So really the idea is you want to have a whole bunch of different ideas, and then you want to choose which ones you want to do and then try to implement them. That's really
Zoom
what
down again.
You want to do. And the last one, this is more of a month by month thing, personal accountability.
This is just a template sheet for you. And what I do is I print off 12 of these for a year. And then each month, what am I going to plan to do? So this month, I may decide I'm going to read 2 books. What actions will I take? Well, first off, I've got to choose my books. Secondly, I've got to go buy them. Then I have to allot some time for them. That's just one action. Okay. So again, it helps you guide to getting to your goals. It's a pathway. So print off 12 of these sheets or download them and you can fill them in. This is just a Word document. But then you can do each month and know what your goals are. So say in June, if I'm going to Shareholder Summit, that's going to be a different month because I'm going to that conference. What do I want to achieve for that conference? June's will reflect that. So it's just a templated sheet for you to print off.
Okay, so there's an Excel sheet in there. This is for business planning, the actual numbers.
Yeah.
So you put your name here, whatever it is. Put in the number here. All the numbers that we have are the ones with the red boxes are the ones that you can adjust. And so you should adjust them depending on what your past history says. Otherwise, you can just sort of use the numbers there. I mean, it's just, this is again for your own planning. It's not written in stone. So, you know, let's just say you wanted to make $250,000. Then based on the numbers here, this would be the amount of gross income that you would need to net this amount. Next step.
And realize these are your numbers. This actually stemmed from my business plan of 2 years ago. That's, you know, where my goal was. Those direct transaction costs were my actual expenses from my taxes that year. So I had numbers, but if you don't, then you can use these and adjust as you go. The nice thing about this sheet is it's completely flexible. So even if you drop the ball and July the 1st, you realize you're not succeeding at the level you want and you haven't looked at this business plan for 6 months, you can go in here, adjust this to be a 6-month business plan and carry on. It'll take you right back to where you want to be. So you put your number in on net income. You've got a copy of this now, so you can change all of these numbers. Anything in a red square, a red rectangle, you can change, and it will change everything right throughout the program.
And if you like, there's also this file, which is also in the folder. If
Yeah.
you want to print it out and use it by pen and paper and a calculator, but personally, I like using the Excel sheet because it calculates everything, but some people are old school.
The
That's
reason
fine.
for the paper one, though, is very simple. If the Excel spreadsheet is going to do all the work, often you'll look at it while we go through it and go, oh yeah, no, I got that. No, I understand that. Oh no. And then when you sit down to actually do it and you go, hold on a second, I forgot, what is this? Why does that change? What is this about? If you go through it while we're going through on paper and write it out, I find that your index finger, the tip of it, is directly hardwired into your brain. When you write things, you suddenly find that you remember things. If you've ever had to memorize a script for a presentation or something like that, the best way to do it is kinetically by writing it out again and again. And while you're doing that, especially if you're looking at what you're doing, obviously, but if you say what you're writing, you also get it auditorily, and you can learn much faster by using all three methods. So you may want to take that sheet, print it off, and just go through it by pen and paper. And then this starts making more sense because you see where that number came from. But we'll use the spreadsheet because otherwise this becomes a 3-day course.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just trying to move forward. So this is the amount that you want to make. And then based on these expenses, which is in a different formula here, this is how much income that you will need in terms of gross commission income.
And know, if you're wondering where those expenses occur, this model, this spreadsheet would run a complete mega team for everything. We're not going to go that deep, but if you go back to my expenses, which you could see there, I've broken things out. And so when you're saying, where did those numbers come from? They're just my numbers that were estimated from before. Okay, they're on another tab. We're not even going to get there today. Just use some numbers. You can add staff, you can do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we're just going to use these numbers, roughly 10%, 30% of your expenses. And so this is how much you need to make that. So moving along, this is the percentage of sellers versus buyers, right? We're trying to work backwards so that the formula will calculate the number of transactions that you need. So basically, let's just say that your sellers are 60%. I don't know, for now, I mean, say 50-50, whatever the number is. So if you need 50% sellers and 50% buyers, then this is the amount of income you'll need from both to hit this number. So you just adjust these numbers as you need. And then this one is the commission for the sales and commission for the buy. And again, these are numbers based on history from what Rick had previously. You put in whatever percentages that you need to. We're not going to tell you what percentage to put in there. It's just whatever makes sense for your business.
Yeah, this is not a commission discussion for RICO purposes. Those were the actual numbers of the year before. When I was doing this 2 years ago, sitting down, doing my business plan at this time of the year, I went back and said, okay, what was my average commission on listings? So I took all the listings I had, looked at added up all the commission rates and divided by the number of deals. That gave me 2. Now, normally you think, oh, everything I do is at 2.5. Well, what about that break you gave to put this deal together and things like that?
Yeah, so again, we're not going to talk about percentages, but whatever percentage you want to put in there, right? You can put 3 here, you can put 1 here, whatever the numbers are. Doesn't really matter.
And it'll change all the other numbers.
It'll change all the formulas.
Yeah.
And so this number here is the average sales price right now for like a sell and the average sales price for buy. And again, you can adjust that for your market.
Yeah, when Lawrence and I looked at that last night, because it was from 2 years ago, it was 800 and 750. And you could look at it and say, well, in my market, it's 1.3 and 1.1. That's fine. Whatever it is, you can put in there.
Right, just put it in there, and then it'll calculate the number of transactions that you need at this percentage to hit this sales volume, to hit this number. So this is how
Okay.
much sales volume you need. Okay, so far so good. Hopefully we're not talking too quickly.
Yeah, but with that, so if you look at that and say, okay, if I want to net, if I want 250 in my pocket when I'm done, means I have to make 416. If I'm half and half buyers and sellers, this was what my commission rates were running at, then I need at that price to make 18 deals. I need 18 closings to
Get
make
this number.
that number.
Now these, oh, sorry, go on.
That's okay, because that's 18 closings. And if you get 100% of every contract, be it a listing agreement or a buyer rep agreement, if you hit 100%, then you'd only need 18. And that's if every contract closed. So the next two categories are, how many do you get that actually close? And you say, well, but all my listings close. Do they? What about that seller that wants 2 million, the place is only worth 1.5 million and no one pays it, after a while he takes it off the market? Okay, no fault of yours, it's just their expectations were too high. So you might not get 100% of everything you list selling. Now, in this market, it's going to be a high number though, because we know that everything's selling. And yet, if you went back 4 or 5 years ago, that number might have been, oh, I take 2 listings and only 1 sells. Maybe have been 50%. Now, the other side is the buyers. Yeah, they're kind of hard to work with at the moment because, I've had a number of buyers that have just given up. They got outpriced, or they've just taken a break because they just can't deal with going after 20 offers and losing. So that number right now might be down where you need a lot more buyers to hit that number above. And then if you step down one level below that, this is how many appointments do you need to get that many listings?
Okay, so to dial it back a bit. So the yellow ones are percentages that we just came up with that are good guesses at what the percentages. You can change them however you like. So the first one is basically the number of listings or BRAs that you'll need. So if you can convert 90% of these, then you will need 9 listings, for example, at 90% to get to this number. Similarly, you need 25 BRAs that you convert 40% of them to get to this number. That's roughly what this section is about. Again, you don't need to adjust these numbers, but you can adjust them, play around with it as you like. And similarly, this is the number of appointments you need. So for example, if for every 15 appointments you get, or listing presentations in this case, you only convert 60% of them to a contract, then you type in 60% here, and this one will calculate that you need 15 appointments. So for example, if you hit 100% of every contract, then you go 9 listing presentations, you convert 100% of them, and you get 9 of these. It's only 50%, then you'll need to go in 18 appointments to get your 9 listings. That's what this means.
And if you know what your numbers are, then you can just drop them in. If you don't, Lawrence and I talked last night and we kind of looked and said, with the market the way it is and what it looks to be for the upcoming year, what's kind of realistic? There's more competition for listings. So even if you're good and would normally go out and get 80%, we want to be a little conservative. If you're conservative and you exceed your goals, that's okay. However, on the flip side of that, you also want to aim high. Because here's the deal. If you don't aim high, you could say, okay, well, my number's 250 and I got, 275. Well, maybe if you'd aimed for 350, you would have got 3.25. What's better? You can say, oh, well, meeting my goal is great. Well, yes, it is. But if you could have gone another 50,000 because your goal was 100,000 higher, you could, oh, I didn't get my goal. So what? You made an extra $50,000 by raising your goal. So aim high.
So lastly, so all this formula will just fill in, and then you want to put in the number of weeks you want to work. And then if you, let's just say you want to work 46 weeks, then it'll calculate. So you need 1.1 appointments per week if you're working 46 weeks in order to hit this number. Right, that's what the formula gives you. Or you need a appointment every 6.4 days. Right. So similarly, if you change this number to like say 100,000, right, you need one appointment every 16 days in order, and you work 46 weeks in order to get the 20 appointments you need to get this many contracts, to get this many transactions, to get this much money, to get that much net money.
Or you can pump that up to 500 on the other
Or
side.
pump it up to 500,000. Why not? 500,000.
But for some of the people here, that might even be low.
Yep, might be low.
And that's great. So, but this will adapt no matter what you do. And what you'll notice there with the week's work, I mentioned earlier, if you were to leave this and not hit, so set it back to 250, Lawrence, if you would.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, just put it back to the 250. Now, what if, as I say, you ignore this, you look at this, yeah, okay, I'll do it later. You get back in your business. And then, you know, June comes along and you go, you know what? I'm not anywhere near where I wanted to be. If you change that week's worked and you make that 23 weeks, there's your goals.
Mhm.
You want to hit what you planned at the beginning? There you are. You're just going to have to double your efforts.
Okay,
Or you may, yeah, go ahead.
just wondering, so Cameron, do you have a question, or anyone have any questions right now?
I do. I just don't want to interrupt. With
No problem.
regards to the direct transaction cost, 10% and 30%, can you just explain why is it 10 and 30? So we can-
That one came
Those came
basically
from
on
my-
history.
Yeah, those came from my numbers 2 years ago. Basically, I rounded them.
so that's 10% of your budget, or is that 10% of your income?
10% of the income. Okay, so, and we'll talk about what is the difference. The reason I love this format, I've got 15 different business plan formats. The reason I fall back to this one, there's three things about this that I really, really like. A lot of them do not separate your buyers and your sellers. They just work on number of transactions. Well, that's problematic if you work and lean one way or another. The other thing that we're going to get into is they don't separate how you do your business, whether you deal with people you know or with people you don't know. And the ratios are dramatically different, but most budgeting models don't account for that. This gives me the flexibility. And the last one is most of them don't break down into weeks worked. So that if you change your mind and say, well, because I'm stuck with pandemic and I can't travel anywhere, I'm on vacation right now. I work half-time with EXP as a manager. Well, I haven't had the chance to go anywhere. So they finally said, Rick, you got to use up your vacation. So I'm not back on until June the 4th or January the 4th. But I had nowhere to go. So you might look at that and say, you know what? I'm not going to end up taking 6 weeks off this year. I'm only going to take 2 at Christmas and then put 50 weeks, and it changes everything. This has got so much flexibility into it that you can manipulate it based on you. So if you go and check your numbers and you find out that your direct transaction costs were only 30,000, you can put 30,000 in later on and it will change that number. Same thing with operating expenses. If you look at all your operating expenses and realize, as I did, I've cut out some of my operating expenses, as I mentioned, my car leases. Right now, if I can't deduct it, why pay it? So I went through when this started 18 months ago and literally looked at all my line by line items and said, do I need those items? And if I can cut that expense, then I don't need to worry so much about what the pandemic is going to do to my income. And if it explodes my income, so much the better. But there were certain things like car leases I didn't need anymore. Okay, so that's why I do like this formula, but you are looking at a lot of my numbers from before.
Yeah. Are there any other questions, or you could just raise your hand or talk if anyone's curious about anything? If not, we'll just move on. Okay, so that will just give you an idea of the number of appointments. So really for, some people, again, if you're putting a number in like 100,000, how's that? There you go. If you're starting out or something, that's what you're trying to aim for net. Again, you probably want to start with like 100,000. I mean, if you're really aiming to make 20,000 or something, I don't know if real estate is for you, as a full-time vocation anyway. But, with 100,000, with these number breakdown, maybe you have more buyers, so you just adjust this number and mostly buyers. And, so you need to go an appointment once every 2 weeks kind of thing. An appointment is either maybe a buyer appointment or a listing presentation. And that will just it gives you a guide. Obviously, it's hard to just keep on track and like just follow this to the T, but it gives you an idea to see if you're behind or ahead. Maybe every quarter you want to revisit this. So this
makes it look very simple, and it is, but never confuse simple with easy. Simple and easy are two different things. This makes it very simple. Getting those appointments is not always so easy. And I find a lot of people, when they've used this and they get to this point, they go, oh, I can easily, that's really simple. I'll go and double my goal or triple my goal. Yeah, you've got to do the rest of it too. If you don't do the actions that create the numbers, the appointments, then it won't work.
Okay, so that is this one. So if there's no other questions here, we're going to move on to the second slide or whatever this is, second sheet. The rest of these we're not really going to cover. We're just going to cover this. This is a lead generation model. And basically, in order to hit those numbers, you're going to have to deal with people that you either know or don't know. They're either known or unknown, or they're considered Mets or unmets. And then that depends on your business model. For instance, for myself, my knowns is basically like 95% of my business are people that knew me like a year ago. It is very rare that there's like a random person that just calls me up and just wants to do business with me. Most of them I've established a relationship over time. However, maybe you're new and you don't really know anybody. And so if that's the case, you need to get your business 100% from the unknown people. The statistic down here, there's two parts. These numbers, again, you could change if you need to, but these are the numbers that we're going to go with. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, essentially, and this drops into how you do your business. Okay, for some people, it's and I, after 43 years, I've got to say, I'm with the 95% or greater that my business is repeat and referral. And frankly, at this point, I'm not even looking for new business. So I don't do a lot of online lead generation. I mean, if somebody gets to know me through Facebook and says, hey, Rick, I've got a question, great, super. But I'm not out there pushing for it. I do client events, I do drop-bys, I do newsletters, I do phone calls with my clients. I have my Facebook segmented into the people I do business with, like clients. I have a separate group so that I can send things directly to them rather than to the 4,500 friends that I've got. So, but somebody else, say you're new in town and say, I don't know anybody. Well, then you're going to be dealing with an unknown database. That would look like farming, door knocking, cold calling, internet lead generation. So, and then from there, and we got to look at the cost of each, you'll find that cost per touch, as we call it, is higher when it's with people that you know. But because the ratio of business that you get from people that you know is approximately 10 to 12 times greater, then the actual cost of dealing with people you don't know will exceed it to get the same number of deals. We're not going to go too far into it, other than that's what this chart is giving you. And you can play around with this and you'll see.
Again, play around with this. So this is about, for example, the general idea using the 33 touch for the known people is that every 12 people, if you touch them 33 times, you get 2 sales. That's what this number is coming from. This number is coming from for every 75 people you don't know, and you basically hit them about 12 times a year, it results in 1 sale. So that's where these numbers come from. And then, so based on your cost per piece, let's just say you're mailing out to your sphere for $1, or for 40 cents, if you're doing like a postcard or something like that, then these are the calculation of how much money it will cost. So, for
So if you
example,
look at it and say, okay, well, okay, but $1, that's, you might look at that and say, well, that's a lot, or you might say, well, that's basically nothing. Remember when you're averaging this out. So if I do a plan where I'm going to deal with the people I know, and I'm going to try and connect with them every, about every 3-4 weeks. So I'm going to touch them 33 times in a year. No, it'd be 3 times in a month. But that may be a phone call. It may be an email. It may be a Facebook connection. So there may be no cost to it. And yet I run, other than pandemic, I run client events. And that takes in my estimated cost is that I'm spending about $12 a year per client. I take a restaurant nearby, Santa comes, I pay for brunch. That's my main client event that I haven't been able to run for the last 2 years. So, but that's where that cost is. And you say, well, gee, that cost is much higher. Per deal, it's not. Because even though, and we estimated what a cost per piece would be for ad mail for farming. So you're going to put that out every month. You're going to end up spending more to get fewer deals. Okay.
yeah. And lastly, so let's just say you want 100% of your business, you want it to be people like your sphere. And then you write down here the number of contacts that you already have. It means that you need 25 new ones, basically based on this model. So this is just again, these are all just planning tools, right?
What is our total on the first page? Right
Oh,
now?
this is 100,000. Right, so we changed.
Yeah, that's why it looks so low. You say, well,
Yeah, that's why it's pretty easy to hit.
I was going to say, hold on a second, we need more than that.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I mean, so for example, you want to spend about $3,700 on your 113 contacts if you want all your sphere business, or if you want a farm. Let's just say you'll need this many people contacts at 40 cents each, and this is how much it'll cost you.
And you can see the number's almost double. The cost is almost double to do it, and you need a huge, huge number of contacts. But you could break that down and say, okay, well, I've got a Facebook network page, a neighborhood page that has 3,000 people on it. Okay, there's 3,000 of your 16,000 you need. And I've got a farm in that neighborhood and it's 4,500. Okay, there's 7,500. Where are you going to get the rest of them? That's what it becomes. To get 250,000 out of a farm will take some years. I'll warn you. Farming is a long-term building business. It's not.
Ramit, you had a question, sorry?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. This is just awesome. Really, really good. The question I have, that these numbers, are we looking at a yearly, right? We are not
Yes,
looking
annual.
at monthly costs. Okay, that's,
Correct,
I
annual.
just wanted to confirm
Yeah,
that.
But play around with it.
This
Okay.
is an annual cost, so
Yeah.
that you can look that into your budget and say, okay, so if you're doing 50-50 to get to 250, now you might already have a farm started. You might already have 5,000 in your farm. So this says, I got to go find 3,400 more people. Or you may already have, and to answer Vivian's question, you may already have what do we have, 56 contacts? You may already be working them. Now, it's not enough to have them. It means that you also have to do something with them. So you could have a database of 1,000 people, but if you are not connecting with them in a meaningful way, at least 2 to 3 times a month, you're not going to get the results that we're talking about here. This is based on you actually connecting with them 2 to 3 times every single month. And you might say in some months, okay, well, I'm going to be away in July and August, so I can't, maybe I can pre-do a newsletter or something, but they're only going to get touched once that month. That's fine. But then you've got to load the other months so that you're still, this is top of mind awareness. When they think about selling a house, they have to think of you or you lose them. And that's what that's all about.
Yeah, that's usually my main goal. I just want to be number one or number two in their mind. If they reject me, it's fine, but at least they thought about me. That's really my
Long-
only goal.
As long as it's number one for a reason, for a good reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I no, I'm just kidding. I had a question in regards to cost of lead program. So in this case, we're talking about mail outs. What if you do mail outs as well as other items? I know, Rick, you said like the brunch, that's $12. How would you add it to that? Let's say if you do online marketing, how do you add to that? And would you add to it, or would it affect it?
Well, it depends on how you're going to run your business. But if you go into some of the tabs later on, if you go to the lead generation tab, and we don't want to get too deep into it today, because this is where you're going to sit down and go, okay, I now have a tool that I can use that's going to take care of all my business. And then you say, okay, but I do my business this way. I do Google ads. I do Facebook advertising. I don't. So you can go to your lead generation tab. Lawrence, if you click on the red lead generation tab,
Uh,
that one, you can break it all down as to however you want. You can see this is really out of date. Newspaper advertising, weekly magazine, bench advertising, like, and I never go this deep because I'm repeat and referral. I am going to only deal with my clients. I do client events and I put that into a budget. I say, okay, to run this client event. Now for my Santa brunch, usually runs about $2,000. And I usually get about $1,000 in sponsorships from my mortgage broker, from my wife's law office, from different places. So my budget will work out to be somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200. That's my major expense, because other than mailing a newsletter, and only to people that I don't email with, otherwise I'm emailing or Facebooking them. So my main cost now is that one client event. And when we get back to non-COVID, I'll be adding more client events. And then there's things that I'll have as drop by. I never go empty-handed if I'm doing a drop by. I have Rick's special Plonk de Richard wine, red and white. I have a variety of different things that are seasonal. I've gone and, some years and filled up my SUV with pumpkins and gone door to door to my client's house. Said, hey, put the coats on the kids, come on out and pick a pumpkin out of the back of my truck. So again, I can get 35 pumpkins from a farmer at $4 a piece. That deals with 35 families and drop-bys. So those are a little bit more selective.
yeah, so once you have an idea of roughly what you want to do, so we'll just do a quick summary and then we can move on to the next section.
Yeah.
So again, you want to put in the amount of money that you want to make. Then this will calculate, once you can break down the percentage of sellers versus buyers and whatever commission historically works for you, put in the average price point of the deals that you have, and then this will calculate the amount of appointments that you need and the number of weeks you want to work, so per day. And then after that, we can move on to lead gen, which is, this will break down roughly your knowns versus unknowns. And then, so it just gives you a better idea of how you want to structure your year. You can go on for that, but these numbers, you can tweak all these numbers as you go. This obviously isn't super detailed, but I think it's very good just as a start, just so you have an idea of what you want to either spend or where you want to spend your time.
The
Okay,
nice
any
thing
questions?
is that if you revisit this monthly, you can change all the numbers. Say that the first month in January, you basically drop the ball completely, then change the weeks worked. So you get nothing. You do nothing in January. It's just, we get a blizzard and nothing happens. Then go and change your weeks worked and you can just carry right on.
Okay, so if that's good, then we can move on to the next section.
Yep.
Which was,
Any questions on that before we drop off?
yeah,
of
any
it?
questions before we leave this?
Once you've gone through it, you may have questions and you may want to reach back out. to
Yeah,
us.
just reach out to us, doesn't matter. So that's how do we get there. And now we'll just start talking about the actual scheduling and mastermind, which will be more interactive. So
And far more interesting than
Far more
listening to me
interesting,
with
I
my
think.
hoarse and froggy voice.